If you're looking to get into hot tenting in the winter and you're not sure what stove you should buy, I think this video will help. We are on our third stove in only our second winter of hot tenting. So we've gone through a real learning curve and we're going to try and share that here in this video. I'll give you a quick overview of our journey through these three stoves, just top level. This is the Great West Metal 12 by 12 by 24 stove. This was the one we got with our hot tent from a Took. We're very happy with our hot tent, not happy with the stove. It provides plenty of heat, but the quality is very poor. For instance, oh, let me just open this door. Oh, the welding gave out and it falls off now. After that, we decided we want top quality. We don't want to mess around with anything that's not going to last. I hate buying things. I hate like the disposable society where you just buy things even though you expect them not to last. That's not me. We went with the G stove. It's high quality. Stainless steel, so it's not going to rust either. It would be very hard to rust it anyway. You'd have to be really negligent. But it's small. It is, it's cold today. It's in the minus 20s. It felt like minus 35 this morning on my hike in. So this does not keep up with that level of cold. If you live somewhere where there's a more mild winter, that could be an awesome stove. Here, it doesn't cut it. So, we've since just bought the Kni-Co Alaskan, which is a 12 by 12 by 24, just like this first one, but quality. At least I hope it is. It has a good name, unlike this one, which I couldn't even find reviews for online. It wasn't a widely distributed item, so sometimes you just take a risk and you win and lose. But Kni-Co has a good name. It's made in the USA, although this one's made in Canada, so this one's just bad by design. And this Kni-Co, many people have used it. There are lots of amazing reviews out there for it. We've paid for all of these. This isn't a sponsored pitch or anything. This one was roughly 260 Canadian dollars. This was 560, and I'm just talking about base stove before tax and shipping. This one was 360. So you got $100 difference between these two. $100 more for this one. And then another $200 more for that one. So a huge difference in price, but you're getting the top quality there with the G Stove XL. It's really been like a Goldilocks kind of thing. You know, we went, this porridge was too cold, this one was too hot, although that's a bad example because it wasn't hot enough. You see what I'm saying? This one I think is just right. It's the nice match of price, quality, and heat potential. So that's the bird's eye view of what we've gone through with our stoves. Now I'll get into some more of the nitty gritty. So while I've got this fallen off door here, why don't I go over quality first on these stoves. This Great West Metal is a hunk of junk. The door fell off when we were in the middle of a hot tenting trip. There are two little welds here on this hinge, and they just gave right out. Door fell right off. Luckily, we were able to jury rig it on just using the latch here, but that was kind of like the breaking point. The pipe was also horribly designed. You would think a stovepipe is so well established technology at this point that you couldn't mess it up. But I'll show you with these new pipes from the Kni-Co what was wrong with them. It was designed so that the female end was on the bottom. You want that flipped. You want this pipe, the lower pipe, to contain this one. Otherwise, creosote can drip down the pipe all the way down onto this pipe onto your stove and then smolder there, creating toxic fumes. And that is what happened to us. So we were super unimpressed with that. You might be thinking, oh, you probably just didn't put it together right. Believe me, we did. As you can see, this is rather rusted now, and that's not the stove's fault. When you buy a sheet metal stove like this, that's just to be expected. You can do things to try and prevent that, but now it's, you know, we pretty much, I actually gave this away to my buddy, and I just borrowed it back for the sake of this video, so he can do whatever he wants with it now. But the last part was the legs. They just slide into these little slats here, and at first I was thinking, how brilliantly simple. It's not. It can easily wiggle around or come out. It's not something you want to happen. You don't want your stove to fall down in the middle of the night with a raging hot fire in it, because it's pretty hard to handle the stove when it's raging. Now the Kni-Co I just got yesterday, I really can't speak to the quality of it, other than that the brand has a good reputation. It looks like it's a lot better done than this older stove. But yeah, I'm just going to let its reputation speak for itself. The G stove is really probably the highest quality of these. It's made of stainless steel. I don't know anything about welding, but like these these side wings, they're just on rock solid. You can lift the stove up, you can shake the stove, it is not budging. It's very high quality, it's beautiful, it's probably the most aesthetically pleasing of the 3 stoves. It's a work of art. These are beautiful too, but they get rusted and whatnot. This one's already developing some real color to it. It's no longer brilliant bright stainless steel, but it has no impact on the quality. And yeah, you got to give this stove some points for aesthetics. It's just beautiful. It has a little glass viewing window so you can look at your fire, as opposed to these stoves where you can only see through little slits in the damper on the door. A beautiful stove doesn't really matter when it's minus 30 or minus 40. You don't care so much about that, but there's something to be said for the craftsmanship on this stove. At the same time, the design of the G-stove is not flawless. The legs are very short unless you get the extension legs, which I would highly recommend if you are going to get the G-stove. But without that, it's very low to the ground. You basically have to get right down here to feed it. And if you're sleeping in living area and your hot tent is a bit higher than your stove, which may have burned down in the snow, then it's even lower. So it's difficult to feed. And then you have such a small front opening here to actually get things in, which I wouldn't have really thought about before I got into this. I wouldn't have really thought that was a big deal. It really is, because it's hard to start a fire in here. I find starting a fire in the G-stove to be unduly difficult just by virtue of, imagine trying to make a fire in a tiny box versus a big box. It'd be way easier in the bigger one. So the size of this front opening is a big drawback in my mind. Not to mention, when it's assembled, there's a little grate here that takes up the bottom 2 centimeters of your stove to allow for airflow underneath your wood. And that gives you even less room in there. And compare that to this. It's a huge difference in the box size. So if you're camping in really cold areas like here in Northern Ontario, I can't stress the importance enough of getting an adequately sized stove. Our tent is 11 by 11. It's the Alaskan. So it's a decent sized tent and it needs a good sized stove. Note the leg height on the Kni-Co Alaskan by comparison to the G-stove. The bottom of this stove starts probably above the top of this stove. So it really is a lot higher and more easy to feed. And the same could be said for this stove over here. The legs aren't as high, but it is still reasonably easy to feed. It has a circular opening, which has less area compared to this large box-shaped opening on the Kni-Co Alaskan. So I do prefer that as well. It just gives you a lot of flexibility for jamming stuff in. If you want to put full-size rounds in there, then you have that flexibility. You can't get a full-size round unless it's a really small tree, small diameter, into the G-stove. Now that is another massive factor that is one of those things, if you've never done this, you probably won't think about it as you're making a purchase. Because this stove is so small, you have to process your wood so much more. You have to cut it shorter, because it's not as long of a box compared to this. I think this one's 19 inches, this one's 24 inches deep. So you're sawing more. We're sawing by hand, we're not using a chainsaw, so that is significantly more work. And you have to split them much finer with the axe, so again, more processing work involved. We enjoy doing that work to an extent, but you need a lot of wood to burn through the night, especially in a really cold night. So it does get old, and it is nice to have that efficiency there. You can see in this stove, this is the 5-inch pipe that it comes with. I didn't assemble the full pipe because I can't fit it in the frame anyway. So that easily fits in there. I could fit 4 or 5 pieces like that, long, big log, thick logs or halves at least. Despite their size differences, the pipes for all 3 of these stoves do fit inside. Difference is with these 2 larger stoves, the pipes are all nesting. This is 2 pipes here. They nest. In the G stove, it's a 3-inch pipe, so they can all just fit in as is. They do not nest, which is actually nice, because if it's really cold out, pulling them apart and putting them back together can be difficult, especially if there's some residual creosote on them. It can be surprisingly difficult. So I do give another point to the G-stove there for not having to nest the pipes. They just fit together really nicely as well. I find them, it's the easiest pipe to assemble by far. But a 3-inch pipe is inherently limiting. You can only have so much draw up a 3-inch pipe compared to a 5-inch. So let's talk about draw next. You have a lot of control over the airflow on the G-stove. You've got this beautiful damper piece on the front, which is controlled by a split ring, which you would think is like a really shabby way to do it, but it actually is very functional, and it's a nicer quality split ring. So you have a lot of control on the front, and then if you buy the airflow controller stovepipe piece here, then you can also control it, your draw in the pipe, which is critical to maintaining a long burn if that's your objective, to put your logs in and not feed it for a while you're asleep, and set an alarm and wake up and do it again. You want to be setting that alarm as infrequently as possible. Comparatively, the Kni-Co, it's got a damper on the front, looks fine. It's a bit less control, a bit less variability compared to the G-Stove, but I'd say that's pretty marginal. And then a damper piece in the pipe as well. No problem, no huge difference there. This one has a much less incremental damper on the front, so less control, and the damper that we got for the flue was also terrible. It just, the spring wouldn't hold for some reason, and it was just poor quality, which is just a microcosm of the stove itself. Going back to that point about sustaining a burn for a long time, in the G-Stove, unless you have hardwood, that's going to be really difficult. If you have some really nice dense hardwood pieces, yeah, you could do a pretty good job of that here. But these stoves are better equipped for that, because you can put some big rounds in, some like unsplit logs is what I'm saying. And those can burn for a long time and keep a good hot ember that'll easily start right back up when you refeed it. I've had this Stanley thermos here as a bit of a size reference. This is like a classic 1 liter thermos. Probably most people are familiar with the size of it. So I'll leave it at that. I think that's everything you need to know to make a purchase decision. It's also going to come down to your shelter, how big it is, and how cold your winter is wherever you live. That has a huge impact on what type of stove you should get. If you are curious about Kni-Cos, they come in different sizes. If the Alaskan's too big for you, if you're in a smaller like teepee tent for instance, this wouldn't be the right choice most likely. So it depends on a lot of factors, but for us, this feels like it's our Goldilocks stove right now. I think it's the right size, the right heat potential, the right price, and quality. I think this will be the one for us in our 11 by 11 tent. At the end of this video, I'll put a little scoring matrix to try and summarize everything here. And this is far from a comprehensive review. There are so many other stoves out there. For instance, titanium stoves, I haven't covered it all. They're the best option in terms of they're lighter, they're corrosion resistant, they're strong, but they're wickedly expensive, especially if you want like a good quality, reputable one. Like 4Dog Stoves is one I looked at. I think they're in Minnesota. For the stove I wanted with shipping and the exchange rate from Canada to US, the price was out of control. I think it was $1,400 or $1,500, which I can't justify. There are some cheaper titanium stoves off of Amazon, but man, I'm so sick of Amazon right now for anything other than just like staple goods. To try and buy camping gear on there and take a risk on a brand that's not established, I'm so tired of getting junk from Amazon and hearing about rip-off companies, you know, taking a good Canadian design, good American design, Scandinavian, whatever, and just mass producing it elsewhere where maybe they can get away with stealing people's designs, and I'm fed up with that. So I would try and discourage you from buying anything like that on Amazon. Get it from a place that you know, like Canadian Outdoor Equipment sells these. I got this stove from Lure of the North. G-Stove I got from G-Stove Canada. So buy from reputable companies that actually care about their reputation and quality. Alright, if you have any questions for us, let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to answer and help you out. Hopefully you don't have to buy 3 stoves to find one like we did.